I could tell you that the dancers that are out there, I mean, we maybe have a little bit different understanding of movement in our own bodies, but we still have to learn how to teach. Just because dancers may be able to do some of the advanced exercises with relative ease in comparison to maybe other bodies or other movers, it doesn't mean that we know how to teach it. Welcome. Stick around if you want to learn about the art and philosophy of beautiful movement mixed with evidence-based exercise science. We'll be having tough and inspiring conversations with other coaches, experts, artists, and athletes. Our goal is to challenge myths, explore concepts, and engage in healthy debate as we dive deep with intrigue and curiosity. I'm your host, Hannah Deutscher. I've been teaching dance, Pilates, and yoga for over 2 decades. And what I've learned is that movement can be the joy that integrates us all together. When we can trust and express ourselves through our bodies, we are unlimited in our ability to change ourselves and our communities for the better. We, as movement teachers and coaches, have the power to help people experience this for themselves. Okay, everyone, let's dive in. Exchanging ideas and changing people's lives one session at a time. This is the Pilates Exchange. Welcome back to the Pilates Exchange. I'm glad you're here. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about teaching what you know and to not worry about what other people are doing. So it's no secret that in the Pilates world, there's a lot of dancers that are also teaching Pilates. There's also a lot of physical therapists. There's a lot of people that have a big background in movement. And I think that for some teachers that don't have that background, it can be intimidating because I think that they need to know all of these other things. And I'd like to dispel that myth because you don't need to have a dance background to teach Pilates. You don't need to be a physical therapist to teach Pilates. You don't have to also know yoga or Feldenkrais or gyrotonics, like all of those other things. You don't need to be an excellent teacher in Pilates, because in the end, what truly matters is the communication and the relationship, the understanding between you and your student, right? That is a far more interesting place to spend your time and your energies developing than having more information, you could take a fascial course, you could take all of these other things are added benefits if it interests you. But 9 times out of 10, those things aren't going to be changing exactly what you're doing with the student, right? Because the principles are always going to stay the same, the principles of teaching. A lunge is still a lunge, whatever you call it, right? A lunge is still going to be a lunge if you understand how it has an effect on the fascial system. It'll still stay the same if you understand or you can name all of the attachments of the different muscles and which ones are moving, concentric to eccentric to all of that. Like it's still the same exercise. It'll still be the same exercise if you're able to name all of those muscles to your student. It still stays the same. The movement stays the same. And in the end, the client really only cares about how is this movement going to help me feel better in my body. So if we look at the fundamental movements in the Pilates method, whether it's mat or any of the equipment, we can look at the basic biomechanics of it, and that might be interesting to you. But in the end, it's just movement. And all you're going to do and all the client really cares about is, do they understand how they should be moving their body? They want to know if they're doing it correct. And now I have talked a lot about like this idea of correct and not like how much do we need to micromanage. And my feeling is very, very little, like let them just do the movement. But that's something that might come up for them. Like, how am I supposed to do it? We want to be creating environments that are conducive to learning. So that is, how are we conveying that information? How safe are we making people feel? Are we, Colleen Jorgensen says, like, are we pain care aware? Are we aware of how our words are going to be affecting if they manifest pain in their bodies or not? How are we supporting our clients with pain? That might be interesting to know. But if we are just looking at the basic teaching methods of communicating well, that goes far, far further than taking another workshop on some silly little piece of apparatus, not even apparatus, like what can you do with a trigger ball? That really is not going to bring you further with your client. So what I want to say is the person that's in front of you that you're teaching doesn't care how many certifications you have. No one has ever asked me, really. They just want to know, can I help them? Can I teach them? Can I make them feel better in their bodies? So if you could do that, then you're doing an excellent job. You don't have to be a dancer. You don't have to be a physical therapist. That being said, of course, we always stay within our lane. We adhere to the principle of like, what are we doing? We're teaching movement. We're not, unless you have the background, then you're allowed to do it. We're not rehabbing people. We're not giving diagnoses. We're not doing anything out of that scope of practice. And if we stick to that, then what we're doing is really simple. We're teaching movement. And it's sometimes nice to know more stuff, but that's all it is. It's more stuff. It doesn't fundamentally change the practice of what you set out to do, which was teach Pilates exercises. So I'd like you to, if you're feeling at all insecure with where you're at, where you're teaching, is it because, I think we have to dig deeper, is it because you feel like you don't know how to teach those exercises? Is that what it is? If you know those, do you know those exercises and the names and how to teach them, how to cue them? Is it lying in that? Or is it that you are feeling insecure because you're seeing other people in, the World Wide Web that have like more certifications and somehow you're comparing yourself to them? Why are we allowing ourselves to feel insecure? What purpose does that hold right now? Is it to talk you out of doing something hard right now? Do you know what I mean? It's like, is it because we are feeling, is it saying, I don't have enough information, I need another certification? Is that a form of procrastination? I've seen that happen quite a few times. Like, just after this certification, this extra certificate, this extra little education weekend, then I'm ready to teach. And I feel like that is one of the sneaky forms of procrastination, when all you really need to do is just start teaching bodies. Right? We need to practice teaching bodies. We need hundreds of hours of teaching bodies before we get good at it, right? Has there been feedback from a student that you feel like you need to have more information? Like, is there something specific that happened? And was it just one person or was it a few different people? Have you heard it from several different people? Then maybe I would consider, where is the information that you need? Where can you glean that new information? What would get you further faster? But if it's just coming from one person, it might just be that person had a bad day. That happens too. We don't want to throw away our entire teaching career because one person made a comment. I've talked often about the Pilates, what we lovingly call the Pilates Police. And what I've often also said, that those people are bullies. So we know as adults, we don't pay attention to the bullies. So is it someone that's bullying you online? And then of course we can let that go. If you need a champion in your corner, then let that be me. Forget that. Shut that down, block them, get rid of them. You don't need that. You don't need that toxic behavior in your life. What you do need to, you are listening to this podcast because you love teaching. You feel like Pilates or other movement methods do people good, that you're doing something right in the body. You're passionate about this process of getting people to move and feeling great in their bodies. And so that's what I want you to focus on, is how are we doing that? How can you create the atmospheres that are good for people learning? How can you create the structure in your class for people to learn? How do you build up those exercises so that they're having great experiences in their bodies, thinking creatively on how to motivate and get people to their goals? I think that's a far more interesting place to be. And then, because then when we're doing it like that, then we're teaching authentically, and people are drawn always to an authentic teacher. I could tell you that the dancers that are out there, I mean, we maybe have a little bit different understanding of movement in our own bodies, but we still have to learn how to teach. Just because dancers may be able to do some of the advanced exercises with relative ease in comparison to maybe other bodies or other movers, it doesn't mean that we know how to teach it. So those dancers need to focus also on how to explain the movement, how to get that across. So they're working on different skill sets, right? Sometimes it's harder when you know how to do something well to know how to teach it. And it's sometimes better, there's more clarity for the people that maybe struggle a little bit more with movement because they've had to experiment more in figuring out what works with their bodies. And those people that they have to struggle a little bit more, in my experience, sometimes make the better teacher because they have to work at it a little bit more. So what in the beginning you're thinking is a weakness, that may be your superpower. We have a lot of physical therapists that come to our studio, not because we understand movement, not that because we're not physical therapists. No one on my staff is a physical therapist. We have physical therapists that come into our studio and take classes with us because they're looking for a different way of creatively getting movements into bodies. So they're learning from us different things than what is being taught in their physical therapy schools. That's what I'm trying to say is like we're all learning from each other, but one thing is not better than the other. We teach from what we know. We shine light on the areas of perhaps the areas that we don't know as well. We refer out for things that we don't know how to do or that are beyond our scope of practice. If the person is not the right fit for us, for whatever reason, we try to find them help and resources that will get them further. So I want to just today give you the confidence that you know enough. You know enough. You do not need to be worrying what other people are doing in their classes, in their trainings. If you have people that are coming to you and taking your classes, then you're doing a great job. You teach from your heart, you teach from what you know, and all of us, we're all evolving. We're all learning as we go on the job. I think far better is to be concentrating on that dialogue, that conversation that you're having within the classes. That goes from like how you are cueing, talking through exercises and the feedback, the conversation that you're coming back with how they are moving. They're telling you what's working and what's not working in the way that they're moving. So concentrate on that. Concentrate on loving what you do. Concentrate also on standing tall and confident and knowing that you really do, you have the information that you need right now. Like if you've got that certification down, there's some people that don't even need the certification. They've already had the experience, enough that experience taking classes over years in their body, and they feel ready to teach and to impart that knowledge, So go forward, have fun. If you have any thoughts about that, let me know. I'm wishing you happy teaching, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. A great cost-free way of supporting us and the podcast would be to give us a 5-star rating. You could also look down into the show notes and grab any one of the free resources for teachers. I hope to see you next week on the Pilates Exchange. Happy teaching, everyone.